Derek lingered silently in the hallway and practically held his breath, trying not to make a sound. He continued listening to Principal Yan and Joshua talk, clueless to the fact that he was there. "And that boy Cameron Pell, he has some language barriers?" Joshua said with a slight frown. "It's not a problem. As long as Millie is happy, that's what matters. They seem to have managed just fine, and if it doesn't matter to her, it doesn't matter to me." Principal Yan waved his hand dismissively. "I hope that with this approach, if we do disagree in the future, I will have earned some goodwill. Everyone wins." Joshua was surprised. He was under the impression one's children should expect to listen to their elders no matter what. That Mr. Yan gave so much leeway for his daughter to argue at all was unusual. "Anyway, this is how I'll handle it for now." Principal Yan continued lightheartedly. "It's Millie's relationship after all. As her adopted father, it's difficult to interfere in her life, and she's a smart, reliable, trustworthy young woman. It seems fair to let her do as she pleases. As long as she uses her head and isn't doing anything dangerous, I think she'll be fine." "I see," Joshua smiled. "You're very open-minded, sir." After a pause, Joshua continued carefully. "And as for Derek..." Principal Yan's smile immediately faded. He sighed deeply at the mention of his much more troubled, difficult son. "I worry about him, sir." Joshua continued carefully. "Derek isn't in school and has been spending so much time with people who don't seem to be the best influence. I wonder if he might not consider going back to Marshall and earning his high school diploma." "You're not the first person to think of that, and it is the obvious answer." Principal Yan frowned. "I've given up on trying to talk to him. I've told him countless times that he should get back on track with his life. And that would be a great start, but it's useless. I've decided to stop caring just to have some peace in this house. If I keep pushing, he may stop coming here altogether. And where will he be?" Principal Yan silently reflected on the state of his family. "As an educator, I know I haven't been perfect in all those years. But I am confident that I always did my best in teaching and imparting good values to my students. I don't know how things went so off the rails with my own children. I've tried everything, but they've completely worn me down. They're just too independent. It's useless to resist. My defiant son is a high school dropout and just spends his time drinking and gambling all night, and I never know when he'll return. Even Millie, the sensible good student, does whatever she wants and flies to Europe without mentioning a word to me. No one respects me. Aren't I the head of the family? I don't have it in me to draw a line with them. Endlessly tolerating their every move is exhausting in its own way, too." Joshua broke the silence with a heavy sigh. "We all do our best, sir." In the hallway, Derek decided he wanted to announce his arrival. He slammed the front door as if he had just returned home. Joshua and Principal Yan looked up at the noise. Derek walked in soon after. Joshua greeted Derek with a smile. "Derek, welcome back." "Thanks," Derek replied curtly. "Look at you." Principal Yan stood up. "What a surprise. I haven't seen you back this early in a while." "Hello to you too, Dad." Derek rolled his eyes. "I came to ask you for something." "More money, I'm guessing?" Principal Yan asked suspiciously. He couldn't remember the last time Derek had approached him and not asked for money. It had been a few days since the last time he gave Derek money, so he was overdue. "What's going on?" "No," Derek scoffed impatiently. "I want to enroll at Marshall High and finish getting my diploma." Principal Yan and Joshua stared at Derek stunned. "You want to go back to school?" Joshua asked excitedly. "Yes," Derek replied. "I'm very glad to hear that, Derek." Principal Yan smiled at Derek. "I'll enroll you right away." He turned and walked to his study. Does my son finally want to turn his life around? Maybe leaving him to figure it out on his own finally made a difference. Principal Yan was very pleased. Maybe it's okay to keep having hope after all, he thought warmly. Derek went straight to his room and shut the door behind him. As soon as he was alone, he became agitated as he thought about Millie. He had no idea what she was getting up to at school, or the kinds of guys she was hanging out with. Some of them were from infamously violent families, and someone needed to protect Millie if she had her guard down. Going to school would allow him to keep her safe, or at least, that's what he told himself. Back at the hospital, Millie prepared to leave for the day, but she suddenly felt a strange chill run down her spine, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. It was a sudden gut feeling. What is going on? Lena wondered as she closed her eyes and took a breath. What's wrong? Millie asked. She looked up from her soup worried. You're like pale all of a sudden. It's nothing. I don't know what that was. Millie shook her head. I just got a weird feeling all of a sudden. Well, now I'm all freaked out. Lena put down her spoon. Maybe something isn't right. How am I going to sleep here now after you had a creepy premonition or something? I could stay here with you tonight. Would that help? Millie offered. No, that's okay. You should get home. We're too far away from school. It would be a huge pain for you to go all the way over there from here in the morning. And Lena's eyes darted over to Cameron Pell and raised her eyebrows. I want you to have enough time to yourself tonight. For studying, obviously. Lena winked. Millie blushed and smiled. Finish your soup. Yes, ma'am. Lena smiled and obediently ate another spoonful. You guys can get going. I'm good here with the soup. Okay, call me if you need anything, Millie said and stood to leave. I will. Lena fluttered her eyes flirtatiously at Millie. Have a good time, she mouthed and waggled her eyebrows. Lena! Millie widened her eyes, urging her friend to cut it out. He's right there, she whispered through her teeth. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't say anything. Lena shook her head. You're hearing things. Good night, Millie snorted and rolled her eyes. Good night, Lena sang. Thanks for taking her home, Cameron. Cameron nodded back at Lena. He and Millie exchanged an amused glance and walked out of the hospital room together. As Millie and Cameron walked back together, there was a slight unspoken tension between them. Millie seemed to maintain a small distance between herself and Cameron that wasn't far, but it wasn't as close as they had been in the last few days. She kept thinking about the photos on the bulletin board at school. Even though the photos didn't show anything scandalous, and the whole incident had blown over without causing them any real trouble, it still left Millie feeling uneasy. She could never know if they were being watched in public. Any special, intimate moment between them could be captured and made into a spectacle, whether it really was or not. Cameron reached out to take Millie's hand, but she instinctively pulled it away without thinking. His face fell, and he put his hand back in his pocket. I'm sorry, Millie said as her face flushed. She signed to him as they walked. I guess I'm still thinking about the pictures at school. I shouldn't let them bother me, but now I feel paranoid. I understand, he signed back. It's okay. I still like walking with you. Millie smiled appreciatively, and they kept walking together. When they reached Millie's place, she waved at the door and said, I've got it from here. See you at school tomorrow. Cameron smiled slightly and nodded. He lingered next to her, not wanting to leave. Millie didn't want him to leave either, but she wasn't sure what else there was to say. Okay, well, good night. She waved and turned to go, but Cameron stepped forward and gently took her hand. Huh? Millie looked down at her hand and turned back toward Cameron. Before she could say anything else, Cameron gently pulled her toward him and sweetly kissed her forehead. His lips felt warm and soft against her skin. She was thrilled, but then her excitement quickly turned to panic that someone might see them. She took a step back and laughed nervously. When Millie looked up at Cameron, her eyes sparkled. Good night, Cameron signed with his hands. Yes, good night. She signed back, clearing her throat and trying to appear calm. She turned around and hurried upstairs. Cameron had an amused smile on his face as he watched her get safely inside. After a minute, he turned around and left. Millie walked through her door and shut it behind her. She sat on the floor and covered her face with her hands flustered. Oh my God, what is my problem? Suddenly, she felt a furry thing touch her ankle and she cried out in surprise. She looked at her feet and saw a white rabbit on its hind legs, tilting its head curiously at her. It had a leaf in its mouth and its cheeks bobbed up and down as it worked on chewing. "Oh, Nuggets, you are so cute, but you ate my flowers again." The next day, Millie came to school with dark circles under her eyes from tossing and turning all night. "Hey, you didn't stay up all night studying, did you? If you're worried about the test today, what hope do I have?" Sam Feinstein commented. "The test?" Millie asked, stunned, and then it hit her. "We have a test today, and I completely forgot." Millie heard a cold scoff from someone behind her. Just as she was about to turn around, whoever was behind her bumped hard into her shoulder. "Hey!" Millie frowned and looked to see who was looking for trouble. She turned, and her face turned to disgust. "You!" "Surprise!" Derek smirked. He had a school bag over his shoulder. Millie frowned at him standing there like he belonged. "What are you doing here?" Derek walked right up to Millie, inches from her face. "See the bag? Finishing what I started. I'm going to go to school here now. Is that a problem?" Millie clenched her jaw. This was her worst nightmare. "What if I say it is a problem?" Millie stared defiantly back at Derek. She was tired of being his punching bag. She wanted to show him that she wasn't afraid of him anymore. Derek's confident face faltered. He had not expected Millie to say that. Some part of him wanted her to be glad that he was there. He had to think about how to respond, but before he could, Millie continued. "I don't know what you're up to, but don't try to ruin the principal's reputation." She raised her eyebrows meaningfully. "It's better if you act like you don't know me." Millie looked at Derek coldly and strode away. Derek was stunned. He had never known Millie to talk back so much. Then he chuckled to himself. He had been worried Millie couldn't defend herself, but she seemed to be tougher than he thought. He walked to his class and saw Millie was already in her seat. When he dropped out of school, he was only one semester short of graduating. He knew this might put them in the same class since they were the same year now, and his guess was correct. Millie saw Derek walk into class and she deflated. "I'm sure Principal Yen is thrilled that Derek is back in school, but this is my nightmare. Derek is crazy. He's a time bomb just waiting to go off, and he'll hurt everyone around him, including himself." Millie gently rubbed her temples, trying to think it through. "What should I do? I wish Derek would actually pretend like he doesn't know me at all. Then I could live a nice, carefree life." "Millie, what are you thinking about?" Olivia asked and touched Millie's shoulder out of concern. "You're frowning like an angry old lady." Of course, Olivia could easily find out what Millie was thinking by using her powers, but she preferred to let her best friend speak for herself rather than invade her thoughts unless it was urgent. "Oh, nothing." Millie looked up at Olivia and shook her head. "Do you have some time after school today to hang out?" "Not today, unfortunately." Olivia sighed. "There's some stuff at the company I have to handle. I might even need to take the afternoon off from school today." "Oh, yeah, no worries." Millie nodded. "You must be exhausted." "It's what I signed up for, and I just have to make it work." Olivia sighed. "I thought I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting into, but now that I've been on the job, of course there's so much more. I really have a new appreciation for all that my dad and Aunt Silpar have done." For so many years, Olivia had watched her dad give every ounce of his energy to the Johnson Company and knew it was not easy on him. Now that she had taken on the same position, she understood firsthand on a whole new level just how difficult it was. Her secretaries helped quite a bit with some of the workload, but everything still had to go through her at the end of the day. Even her VP, Jeff Dreyer, needed her sign-off on everything he did. Olivia had not taken a moment until now to really acknowledge just how busy she was. It wasn't just the in-office workload, but there were also social obligations as the chairman of the company. Jeff helped share that load as well. Sometimes when she left the office at the end of the day, she could see that the light was still on in Jeff's office. He was putting even more time than she was, and she felt guilty. "I want to give him more shares in the company or a raise or something. Without him, I would be drowning. I would not be able to do it." People looking in from the outside praised Olivia for managing Park Inc. so well at such a young age, but Olivia privately felt like she was struggling. No one saw her staying up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning just trying to keep up. She had to master so many new things she had never heard of before in such a short amount of time to be the best leader she could be. It had been such a long time since she really slept. She was averaging 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, and it was not good quality sleep she needed to replenish her energy. She was tired on a deep level. "Have you ever considered letting your father and Aunt Par help you again?" Millie asked Olivia. "I mean, take a good look at yourself in the mirror lately. You're not getting real sleep. Your eyes are bloodshot. It's a little scary." "I know," Olivia admitted, resting her face in her hands. "I have dark circles under my eyes. I thought about asking for help, but I don't know." "What if you dropped out of school?" Millie suggested. "It's not like you need it. You already have 2 super high-profile jobs that anyone else would kill for." "No, I can't quit school." Olivia shook her head, determined. "I still have unfinished business here." "Your diploma?" Millie asked, surprised, thinking that was an odd thing to care about in Olivia's situation. "Something like that," Olivia said. She thought about how she still wasn't done with her primary mission in her new life, getting revenge on those connected to the Marshall School who deeply wronged her in her past life. Until that goal was accomplished, she had to stay put. "Right," Millie shrugged. "Then maybe combine forces." "You mean with you?" Olivia asked, surprised. No, I still have to take care of Lena at the hospital. I've got enough going on as it is." Millie shook her head. "I'm talking about combining forces between Park Inc. and Confluence Technology. They're both your family businesses, so maybe it makes sense to just combine them." "Huh." Olivia blinked, considering. Her dad was doing well with Confluence, and Olivia wanted to give Park Inc. to her grandfather Andrew eventually. Combining the 2 companies would complicate those goals. "What is it? They can't be combined?" Millie raised her eyebrows and asked. "There are a lot of complicated things involved. Let's talk about it later. I don't have the energy to go into it right now." Olivia sighed. She moved to change the subject. "That makes sense," Millie shrugged. "You need to take care of yourself. Remember to put yourself first." "I know. That is good advice. You take care of yourself too," Olivia answered. "I will," Millie promised. "You have nothing to worry about." She smiled. Olivia sat in Cameron Pell's seat and smiled playfully. "And how about you and him? How's that going?" "Who?" Millie asked. "You know who," Olivia said and lightly tapped her fingers on Cameron's desk. Millie smiled. "It's going along well." Olivia leaned in slyly. "And how much have you guys done together?" she asked in a low voice. "Has he—" "Shh, Olivia!" Millie's face turned bright red, and she lightly hit Olivia on the shoulder with the back of her hand. "You can't ask that." Olivia giggled. "If you don't want to say, you don't have to say. Just be careful. Keep an eye out for any signs of trouble." Olivia was mostly teasing Millie, but she did still worry a bit about Cameron being from the Pell family. Ever since the Pell twins transferred into Marshall High, so much drama had happened around them. At first, they were keeping a very close eye on her. Then it was the Crawford family's secret investigation of Millie. And now Millie and Cameron were together. It was a lot to keep track of. It seems like such a coincidence that both the Crawford family and the Pell family have their interests in Millie, Olivia thought. If by some crazy chance I'm right about Millie really being the lost daughter of the Crawford family. And if Cameron somehow knows that, could he just be using Millie? Does he really like her, or is this all a plan of some kind? Olivia lowered her eyes. She hoped it was the former. But if it is some kind of manipulative plot, I will get justice for Millie, even if I have to take out the entire Pell family. Millie noticed Olivia's dark look as she stared off into space. "What are you thinking about? Your eyes look a little scary all of a sudden." Millie laughed nervously and waved her hand in front of Olivia's face. "Oh, nothing, sorry." Olivia snapped out of her vengeful plotting and smiled. She reached out and held Millie's hand. I just don't know if Cameron can make you as happy as I could, Olivia joked, trying to distract Millie. Maybe you two should duel it out after school. Millie played along. Sounds good, but I'm definitely gonna win, Olivia laughed. Does Chris know about this plan of yours? Millie smiled and playfully pushed Olivia. Sorry, Chris, your fiancé is leaving you to be with me instead. I didn't know what love could be until now. I'm leaving my future husband, Millie said dramatically. Wow, looks like you have a competition for your girlfriend, Camilla's voice said from behind. Millie whipped around to see Camilla nudging Cameron with her shoulder. Cameron looked at Millie's blushing face and smiled, amused. Millie was dying of embarrassment. How long was he standing there? Did he hear me call him my future husband? Did Cameron hear everything I said? I was just kidding around. Millie cringed internally as Olivia got out of Cameron's seat and made room for him. Cameron sat down next to her and appeared to be smirking, but Millie had no idea what he was thinking. She busied herself with some notes from class, unable to look Cameron in the eye. Cameron had heard enough, but he wasn't embarrassed in the slightest. He knew she was joking around with Olivia. But hearing Millie say he was her future husband, even as a joke, made his heart skip a beat. He loved it when she blushed, and he enjoyed seeing that he affected her that much. Olivia went back to her seat and looked at Cameron sitting next to Millie, still mulling over her suspicions, until she was sure that Millie wasn't actually the long-lost Marina Crawford. She couldn't be sure of Cameron's intentions. Millie looked so happy with him, though, Olivia thought. I can't bear to ruin that for her. I'll just have to do some digging myself until I'm sure. The class bell rang. Everyone returned to their seats, and the math teacher came in. Millie sighed in relief. She was grateful to focus on school and tune out everything else going on in her life for at least a while. Derek can't bother me in the middle of a lesson, at least. Who knows, maybe he'll actually learn something if he bothers to pay attention. Whatever. I won't think about him anymore. Later in the school day, everyone had a period of canceled classes while all the teachers had a staff meeting. The students were allowed a free period, and most of them hung out, talked, and laughed while others did homework. Some students even took naps. Millie and her friends were joking around when suddenly, a student poked their head in the door and called out, Millie, someone is looking for you. Millie turned to see who was at the door, and her smile instantly disappeared. It was Derek waiting for her in the hallway. I told him to act like he doesn't even know me, and he goes and does this? Why is he so obsessed with me? Derek saw the disgust in Millie's eyes and frowned. Millie stood up to meet him outside. Just as she was about to walk out, she felt a hand grab hers. She looked down and saw that Cameron, who had just been sleeping with his head down on the desk, was awake and holding her back from leaving. I'll be right back, Millie assured him. Cameron kept holding her hand and stood up next to her. I'll go with you, he signed to her. Millie looked into Cameron's resolute eyes and sighed. Okay, let's go. I can't argue with you. She led him by the hand out of the classroom door. When Derek saw them together, he eyed their hands, and he did not like it one bit. I don't trust the Pells as far as I can throw them, he thought angrily. What is the matter with you? Millie asked Derek. She did not know why he was scowling at them. I didn't think anyone would be joining us. Derek snorted. My class was canceled too, and I had nothing else to do, so I was looking for you. I thought I made myself clear this morning. Millie glared at Derek. You were very clear, Derek said. But so what? You can't just tell me what to do. What do you want? Millie asked impatiently. I want to talk to you alone. Derek glanced at Cameron coldly. Alone? Millie shook her head. Derek is crazy. There's no way I'm saying anything to him alone, she thought. She stood taller and said, No, I'm not doing that. He stays or we're going back inside. Millie, Derek started to say, but he was interrupted. Cameron stepped in front of Millie protectively. Cameron and Derek were about the same size, and they stared each other down with equal hostility. At any moment, they looked like they would start swinging. "You're Cameron Pell, right?" Derek asked. In his mind, he added, "So this is Millie's so-called boyfriend I've heard so much about in class." Cameron glared back at Derek with an intimidating expression. "And you're the scum who almost strangled Millie to death," he thought. "If I could, I'd kill you right now with my own hands, but I won't do that in front of her." Millie took a deep breath. "Derek, I don't know what you're so angry about, but if there's anything you need to say to me, just say it now and get it over with and leave me alone." Even with Cameron sweetly stepping in front of her to protect her, her anger at Derek overshadowed her nice feelings about Cameron at that moment. "Come talk to me alone and I'll say what I want to say," Derek said to Millie and completely ignored Cameron. "I said if you have something to say it now," Millie repeated firmly. "You really want me to ask now? Are you sure you want your boyfriend around when I do?" Derek sneered. Millie's heart skipped a beat. She immediately remembered Derek's warning earlier. Forget it then. Millie was already worried that standing here talking to Derek would attract attention. She was trying to keep the fact that she and Derek were related a secret, but he was making that increasingly hard to pull off. He left her no choice. "Fine, we'll talk somewhere else." Millie relented and let go of Cameron's hand. "I'll be back soon," she said to Cameron. Cameron frowned at Millie but respected her wishes. Derek smirked at Cameron tauntingly as he said to Millie, "Follow me." Millie scowled and followed after Derek. "Millie," Olivia called out after she rounded the corner and saw Cameron and Derek in their standoff, with Millie about to walk off with Derek. "It's okay, I'll just be gone for a bit." Millie smiled reassuringly at Olivia before following Derek out. Olivia wanted to say more to Millie, but from the way Millie smiled, she sensed not to. She trusted Millie. "We'll be waiting for you," she said pointedly at Derek's back. Derek walked ahead of Millie and occasionally glanced at the glass window beside him to check if Millie was still following him. She was very quiet. Even though he had really left her no choice but to follow him, he still felt satisfied that she had agreed to do so. He walked all the way up the stairwell to the rooftop and finally stopped there. They were definitely alone. "Okay, are you going to tell me what you wanted to say now?" Millie asked impatiently. She folded her arms across her chest. Derek still had his back to her. "How long have you been seeing him?" he asked like an interrogator. He kept looking out at the scenery in the distance. "Excuse me, that's none of your business," Millie scoffed. She did not want to answer Derek's question. "Is that why you dragged me all the way up here to ask nosy questions?" "What do you like about him?" Derek turned and looked at Millie skeptically. "Do you even know him, really?" "If you're just going to grill me about Cameron, I'll turn around and go back." Millie turned and was about to leave. "Don't walk away from me while I'm talking to you." Derek frowned. "Someone has to make sure you're safe, and Dad is a total pushover. He's not up to the task." "Are you crazy?" Millie backed away from Derek. "You're so out of line. You just came to school to spy on me?" "You've left me no choice," Derek argued. Millie stared back at Derek, then turned to leave. He reached out and grabbed her wrist to stop her. "You can hate me all you want, but I'm not going to let you just make a dangerous mistake. Dad's afraid of being disliked, but I'm not. Someone has to be the bad guy. Fine, I'm the bad guy." "Let go!" Millie struggled to free her wrist. "You know he's from the Pell family, right? You know they're dangerous," Derek said, and didn't let Millie go. "You don't know him at all. I do, and I know you. You're the one that's dangerous. You're the one who has literally hurt me, not him." Millie yelled and pounded her fist on Derek's chest to release her. "You're right, I shouldn't have done that. But I don't know how to get you to listen to me. You just do whatever you want," Derek yelled back. "And who does that sound like?" Millie spat. "Let me go." Millie continued struggling and looked down at Derek's wrist. "I have to get out of here," Millie thought desperately. She made up her mind and seized her opportunity. Millie used all her strength, brought Derek's wrist up to her mouth, and bit down as hard as she could. Derek's scream echoed in the stairwell. He glared down at her with bloodthirsty eyes. He looked like he wanted to snap her in half. Derek's scream of pain gradually faded, yet his grip on Millie's wrist remained unyielding. His eyes, wild with a mix of rage and shock, bore into her with an intensity that chilled her to the bone. "Derek, let go! Let me go!" she pleaded, struggling to free herself. Her voice was laced with desperation, echoing in the empty rooftop stairwell. Derek, however, seemed almost deaf to her pleas, his gaze fixed on her with a crazed, dangerous look. "You bit me," he hissed, his voice low and menacing. "You actually bit me. You think you can just make me bleed and walk away?" Millie's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to wriggle out of his grasp. "Derek, please, you're hurting me. You need to let me go," she begged, her voice trembling. In her mind, panic reigned supreme. "I thought biting him would be my chance to escape. Why isn't he letting me go? What if I've made things worse?" Millie's thoughts raced, her fear amplifying with each passing second. Derek's grip tightened, his eyes never leaving hers. "She's afraid. Good. She should be afraid," he thought bitterly. "She needs to understand fear the way I understood it when Mom died. She left me in confusion and terror, and Millie, she deserves every bit of this fear." I didn't mean to hurt you," Millie stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, Derek." But Derek was lost in his own world, his thoughts spiraling. But what about me? I didn't deserve any of this. I didn't deserve the confusion, the fear after Mom's death. My mom didn't deserve to die afraid. And it's all because of Millie. I hate her. I hate Millie. I hate Millie. Millie's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, her heart pounding against her ribcage. "Please, someone help me. I need to get away from him. I don't know what he'll do." "Derek, listen to me." Millie's voice cracked as she spoke, her attempts to free herself becoming more frantic. "You need to let go of me. You don't have to do this. Just let me go." But Derek was unyielding, his grip as firm as steel. "You made me bleed, Millie. It's only fair I do the same to you," he growled, his eyes reflecting a dark, twisted satisfaction. Millie's breath hitched in her throat, her mind racing. "This can't be happening. He's going to hurt me. I need to get away from here. I have to." Derek's twisted smile faded as his thoughts wandered to his mother. Mom was afraid too. She didn't deserve that fear, that confusion, and now Millie. She'll understand. She'll understand what it feels like. But Derek was lost in his own world, his thoughts consumed by hatred and pain. She has to understand. She has to feel the fear I felt. She has to pay. Millie's mind raced, her thoughts a blur of fear and desperation. I need to get away. I can't let him hurt me. I have to escape. But how? How can I get away from him? As Derek glared at her, his grip on her wrist unrelenting, Millie's fear reached its peak. She knew she had to do something, anything to escape. With a sudden burst of energy, she pulled back with all her might, hoping, praying that she could break free. But Derek's grip was too strong, his resolve too firm. As he looked down at her, his eyes filled with a twisted sense of satisfaction. Millie knew she was in real danger. Derek, please, she thought desperately. Please let me go. Please don't hurt me. Derek pushed her into the rooftop door, opening it and forcing her backward into the open space. The door shut behind them, trapping Millie up there with Derek. You've ruined everything, Millie, everything. Derek spat the words with venom, his eyes ablaze with a mixture of sorrow and anger. The rooftop air seemed to thicken with tension. Millie, gasping for breath, met his gaze with a mix of fear and defiance. What are you talking about, Derek? When Mom died, all the happiness in our lives just vanished. It's because of you, Millie, because of you. His voice broke as he spoke, a torrent of pent-up emotions crashing down. Millie's eyes widened in shock and hurt. But Derek, she was my mom too, she pleaded, hoping to find some shred of empathy in him. This only seemed to fuel Derek's rage further. Your mom? You didn't deserve her. She was everything to me, and you just took her away. You don't deserve happiness, not after what you've done. Millie struggled against his ironclad grip on her wrists, her body twisting in an attempt to break free. But Derek's anger seemed to lend him a terrible strength, and he pushed her against the wall, his bloody wrist inches from her face. Look at this, Millie, this blood. It's the same color my mother's was the day she died, and it's on your hands. Terror gripped Millie's heart, her mind racing with fear. He snapped. He's really snapped. I'm in danger. I need to get away, but how? In his blinding rage, Derek's hands moved to her throat, squeezing tightly. I've always wanted to do this to you. To strangle the life out of you the way you and Dad took my mother's life. Millie choked out an apology, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry, Derek, please. But Derek's fury only seemed to grow. Sorry? Sorry won't bring her back. Sorry won't erase what you did. Millie's face began to turn a worrying shade of red, her eyes bulging as she gasped for air. Her struggles became weaker as Derek's grip tightened. Derek, in his rage, was lost in his own thoughts. I'm finally doing it. I'm finally making her pay. But wait, if I don't stop, she's going to die. The realization hit him like a wave. If I kill her, she'll be dead, just like Mom. And I'll be no better than her. I can't become what I hate. With a sudden release, Derek let go of Millie's throat, stepping back as if shocked by his own actions. Millie crumpled to the ground, coughing and gasping for air. Derek stared at his hands, the hands that had almost taken a life. What have I become? If I kill Millie, she'll be gone forever, just like Mom. I can't. I won't be the monster that Millie is. Millie, her breath ragged and throat burning, pushed herself up as Derek loosened his grip. She stumbled but regained her footing, her eyes locking with Derek's. At that moment, something within her shifted. No longer was she the frightened, submissive sister. It was time to stand up for herself. You had your chance, Derek, Millie said, her voice steady despite the fear still lingering in her heart. You blew it. You can never touch me again. Never. Internally, Millie's thoughts were a whirlwind. In the past, I might have let him kill me. But now I have so much to live for. Lena, Olivia, all of my friends, and Cameron. I have a beautiful life, a life worth fighting for. Derek, his expression twisted with anger and desperation, shot back. You think you can just escape me, Millie? Think again. You want to bet? Millie retorted, her newfound resolve shining in her eyes. At that moment, Olivia, Morgana, and Cameron burst onto the rooftop. They had sensed something was wrong and had come to find Millie. Cameron rushed to Millie's side, his eyes filled with concern as he gently wiped blood from her face. Signing quickly, Cameron asked, Is this your blood? Millie shook her head, signing back, No, it's not mine. Thank you for coming for me. Cameron's eyes searched her face, full of worry. He signed, Are you okay? Leaning into Cameron, Millie signed, I will be. Olivia's gaze was fixed on Derek, her eyes burning with the fury that made even the air around her seem to crackle. He's gone too far this time. Maybe it's time Derek got a taste of his own medicine. Morgana whispered in Olivia's ear, Should we concoct something dark, twisted, and special for our favorite enemy, Derek? Olivia responded, her voice low. Not yet, but he needs to be stopped. If it were up to me, he'd be dead by now, Morgana muttered, her gaze cold. Noticing the blood on Derek's wrists, Morgana thought to herself, "Good job, Millie. I didn't know you had it in you." Olivia and Morgana quickly enveloped Millie in a hug, checking to ensure she was okay. Cameron stood protectively by her side. Morgana, Olivia, and Cameron formed a protective huddle around Millie, their presence a clear barrier against any further aggression from Derek. They were ready to escort her back to class. But as they began to move, Derek reached out, grabbing Millie's wrist again. Millie's heart sank. "Let me go, Derek," she demanded, her voice steady but laced with fear. Derek's gaze swept over Millie's friends, then back to her. "I'll never let go," he said, his voice chilling. "You'll never escape me, Millie." Millie pulled her wrist away, her friends surrounding her even more tightly. They walked away, leaving Derek standing alone on the rooftop, his eyes still fixed on Millie with an unsettling intensity. "This isn't over," he thought coldly. Millie's eyes blazed with a mix of fear and defiance as she tore her wrist from Derek's grasp. She swiftly turned, joining Olivia, Morgana, and Cameron. Together, they began their walk back to the classroom, a protective circle around Millie. Olivia, her gaze sharp and calculating, lingered on Derek. With the subtle flicker of her eyes, she unleashed a small surge of her powers, targeting the bite wound on Derek's wrist. For a brief moment, it flared with pain. Derek's face contorted in sudden agony, his hand instinctively clutching at the searing wound. A mix of confusion and pain etched across his features. He screamed out in pain. "He deserves so much worse," Olivia thought, her mind teetering on the edge of darker desires. To watch him suffer, to see him pay, but not here, not now. Cameron, his concern for Millie apparent, gently took her hand and led her past the classroom door and down the hall to a quieter spot. "Are you all right, Millie?" he signed with a softness in his eyes. Millie managed a small nod, her eyes still haunted. I think so," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Back near the classroom, Morgana watched them with a raised eyebrow. She leaned toward Olivia. "What's the deal with those two? Seems pretty intense." Olivia sighed, her gaze following Millie and Cameron. "It's complicated, Morgana. Let's just say they found something special in each other." Camilla, stepping out of the classroom, noticed the group. Approaching them with a knowing look, she said, "Don't worry about Millie. Cameron won't let anything happen to her. He cares about her, more than I've seen him care about anyone." Olivia turned to Camilla, a hint of gratitude in her eyes. "I can see that. He's gentle with her, protective. It's reassuring." Camilla smiled, a touch of fondness in her voice. "I never thought I'd see my brother like this. Millie's brought out a side of him I didn't know existed." "Love does strange things to people," Olivia mused. "I'm just glad Millie's found someone who can be there for her." Morgana, ever the cynic, smirked. "Look at us, getting all mushy over young love. Who would have thought?" Their laughter echoed in the hallway as they walked back into the classroom. Cameron gently guided Millie towards the nurse's office, his touch reassuring. Millie watched him closely, a sense of gratitude welling up inside her. "Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd have a boyfriend, especially not one as kind and protective as Cameron," Millie mused internally. "After everything I've been through, to feel this cared for, it's more than I ever hoped for." As they walked, Millie's mind wandered back to her past, the memories she often tried to suppress. "I try not to think about the orphanage, about my younger self, but on days like these, those memories just flood back. And yet here I am with someone who makes me feel safe, something I yearned for all those years ago." Cameron looked around the nurse's office, his expression turning to one of slight confusion when he realized no one was there. He signed to Millie. "It doesn't seem like the nurse is here." "That's fine," Millie replied softly. "I'll be okay." Cameron gave her a soft look full of concern. He signed, "Please sit down." Millie, a bit confused but trusting, obliged and sat down on a nearby chair. Cameron found some bandages in the office and gently approached Millie. He carefully tended to the wounds on her wrists, his movements tender and attentive. Watching Cameron care for her stirred a wave of emotion in Millie. How did I get so lucky to have someone like him in my life? As Cameron continued, Millie's mind wrestled with a daunting thought. Should I tell him? Should I reveal my full truth? It's terrifying to be this vulnerable with someone. The internal debate raged on. Being open about my past, about everything, it's a risk. But maybe it's a risk worth taking. He's shown me nothing but kindness. Maybe it's time to let him see the real me. All of me. Millie took a deep breath, steeling herself. Okay, Millie, you can do this. It's scary, but he deserves to know. You can be vulnerable with him. He's earned that trust. Cameron finished bandaging her wrists and looked up at her, his eyes searching hers for any sign of discomfort. Millie met his gaze, a mix of appreciation and a newfound determination to be completely honest with him. Millie exhaled deeply, her eyes locked with Cameron's. Cameron, there's something I want to tell you, she began, her voice quivering slightly. Cameron, noticing her discomfort, sighed with concern. Did I hurt you? No, you didn't hurt me at all, Millie reassured him quickly. I just think it's time to be honest about something. Cameron nodded, his expression softening. He signed back, You can tell me anything. Millie managed a soft smile and squeezed Cameron's hand nervously. The thing is, Derek is actually my brother. My adopted brother. Cameron's brow furrowed in confusion. Derek believes I am the reason his mother, our mom, died, Millie continued, her voice barely above a whisper. But the truth is, I don't really know if I was responsible. I don't remember much from that time. All I remember is not wanting to go back to the orphanage. The orphanage? Cameron sighed, his eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Millie nodded. I don't talk about it much. It's a dark time for me. Cameron gently sighed. It's okay to open up to me, but it's also okay if you don't want to. Appreciation filled Millie's eyes. She took a deep breath and began to share her experiences. The orphanage was a nightmare, Cameron. The caretakers were cruel and indifferent to our needs. I remember nights, so many nights, lying awake on a thin mattress, listening to the cries of other kids. We were all so scared, so alone. She paused, gathering her strength. There was this one time they locked me in a dark room for hours, just because I talked back. I was just a kid, scared and defiant. I didn't understand why they had to be so harsh. Cameron's face was a picture of empathy, urging her to continue. Meals were the worst. We lined up for this slop they called food. If you complained, you didn't eat. I remember once I tried to sneak some bread to a younger kid who was crying from hunger. They caught me and I was punished. No food for a day. But it was worth it. That little kid, he needed someone. Millie's voice broke a little. I tried so hard to fight against the cruelty, to stand up for the younger ones, but it was like fighting against a tidal wave. I was punished more times than I can count. Isolation, hunger, they used everything to break our spirits. Cameron listened, his eyes never leaving her face, his hand holding hers in a silent promise of support. Millie's eyes held a distant look as she delved deeper into her past. You know, the head of the orphanage tried really hard to get me adopted. They labeled me as a problem child, someone they didn't want around. She paused, a bitter smile touching her lips. At first, living with the Brown family was nice, actually. But then school started, and I found this thirst for learning. I was always a great student, and Principal Yan took a special interest in me because of that. I think that's when things started to change with Derek and Butterfly, Principal Yan's other kids. Millie's voice became quieter as she recounted her experiences with Derek and Butterfly. They began to ignore me. It wasn't immediate, but slowly, I became invisible to them. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but it was real. They just stopped acknowledging my presence. The ignoring part, it eventually turned into bullying. Millie continued, a sadness creeping into her voice. It was because of Principal Yan's preferential treatment towards me. He didn't mean to, but it created this rift. The bullying wasn't just at home, it spread to school as well. She sighed heavily. The bullying from Derek became physical. He would push me into the lockers and trip me in the hallway. Sometimes he'd hide my things or throw my books away. It was like he enjoyed seeing me upset and scared. Butterfly, she was just mean. She would spread rumors about me and turn other kids against me. I felt so alone, like everyone was against me. But you know what? As bad as it was, nothing they did could compare to the horrors of the orphanage. That place, it was a living nightmare. Millie paused, waiting expectantly to see what Cameron's response would be. I've never told anyone this before, she thought with a mixture of worry and relief. What does Cameron think of me now? Will he ever be able to look at me the same way again? Cameron's heart ached for Millie. He wrapped her in a warm hug, then sighing, I'm so sorry you've had to endure so much pain and cruelty. You, of all people, don't deserve that. Millie melted into Cameron's embrace, feeling a sense of safety and comfort she hadn't known for a long time. After a while, Millie slowly pulled away from him, a wave of emotions washing over her. She quickly wiped away the small tears that had sprung to her eyes, taking a moment to compose herself. I can't believe I just shared all of that with him, she thought, a sense of relief mingling with surprise. It felt so liberating to finally tell someone about the orphanage. And Cameron, he didn't even flinch. Her thoughts continued. I was so sure he'd run away after hearing about all of that, but he didn't. He stayed. He listened. Millie took a deep breath and began to speak again, her voice gaining strength. You know, there's an irony in my attempts to get good grades. I worked hard in school because I thought it would make Principal Yan happy and keep him from sending me back to that horrible place. But in the end, it just pushed me further away from Derek and Butterfly. Her words flowed more freely now, a cathartic release. I thought if I excelled, if I proved myself, I would be safe. I thought it would solidify my place in their family, but it did the opposite. It isolated me, made me an outsider in my own home. She paused, a pain expression crossing her face. Derek and Butterfly, they hated me so much. They saw me as this intruder who stole their father's attention. It got to the point where their mother, my adopted mother, decided to send me back to the orphanage. Can you believe it? After trying so hard to escape that place, I was almost sent back. It felt like no matter what I did, I just couldn't win. Millie hesitated for a moment, gathering her thoughts before speaking again. I think Mrs. Brown, she hated me even more than Derek and Butterfly did, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Brown, she was physically abusive, Millie revealed, her eyes clouding with the memory. She was furious about what people were saying, that I was better than Derek and Butterfly in school. It made her so angry. Millie took a deep breath, the pain evident in her voice. She would hit me, sometimes for no reason at all. It was like she needed to prove I wasn't better, to put me in my place. I remember this one time she grabbed me by the hair because I got a higher grade than Derek. She dragged me across the room, screaming about how I was making her children look bad. Millie's voice trembled as she continued. Mrs. Brown was jealous, insanely jealous of the attention Principal Yan gave me. It was like she saw me as a threat, a rival for her children's affection, for her husband's attention. She couldn't stand the idea that he might favor me over her own kids. Millie's eyes became distant as she recounted a pivotal moment. There was this one day. Mrs. Brown was driving me to the orphanage. She said she couldn't handle me anymore, that I was destroying her family. I remember sitting in that car feeling so helpless, so defeated. Millie gave a small shake of her head and her voice grew stronger as she reached the climax of her story. But then something in me just snapped. I couldn't go back to that place. I just couldn't. So I waited until she slowed down at a stop sign, and I opened the door and ran. I ran as fast as I could, not knowing where I was going, just knowing I had to get away. Millie's voice wavered as she continued her story. Eventually, Principal Yan found me. I was so scared, frozen, and shivering. I begged him, pleaded with him not to take me back to the orphanage. She paused, her gaze distant as she recalled the memory. I remember I just passed out from the cold, and when I woke up, I was in a hospital room. Principal Yan and Mrs. Brown were there arguing. I was half conscious, but I could hear them. Millie's voice grew more animated as she recounted the argument. They were arguing about me, about Derek and Butterfly. Principal Yan was furious about how I was getting special treatment in school and how it was affecting his own children. Mrs. Brown, she was just defensive, blaming me for everything, saying I was the problem. She took a deep breath before continuing. The argument escalated so quickly. I remember lying there feeling so helpless, hearing them argue over me like I was just a problem to be solved. And then the doctor came in. Millie's eyes reflected the gravity of the moment. The doctor, he saw the bruises, the marks from Mrs. Brown's abuse. He questioned them about it, and Principal Yan, he just lost it. He slapped Mrs. Brown right there in the hospital in front of everyone. He was so angry, so upset over what she had done to me. Millie's expression darkened as she delved further into the past. After the slap, Mrs. Brown just ran out of the hospital. In her haste, she was immediately hit by a truck outside. Derek and Butterfly followed her and witnessed it all. That's when they started blaming me and the abuse got even worse. Cameron, his heart aching for her, reached out to comfort Millie. He wrapped his arms around her again, holding her close in a silent, protective embrace. Cameron thought to himself, I wish I could speak right now. Tell her that it's not her fault, that she's so strong. But I can't. All I can do is be here for her. Millie leaned into Cameron's embrace, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Before I met my friends, before Cameron, I used to wish it was me who got hit by that truck. But now I'm happy to be alive because of them. She felt Cameron's gaze on her, noticing her introspective silence. She looked up at him, finding comfort in his eyes. Cameron hugged Millie again, gently and protectively. He then leaned in and kissed her forehead, a gesture full of warmth and care. Cameron looked into Millie's eyes, signing with determination that resonated deeply within her. I will do whatever I can to make sure you always feel protected, he conveyed earnestly. Millie smiled, genuine and warm, lit up her face in response to his promise. She felt a sense of safety and belonging that had been missing for so long. Cameron leaned in gently and kissed her forehead, a tender and caring gesture. He then signed, I care about you very much. Millie, her heart swelling with emotions, replied, I never thought I'd share everything with someone. I'm so glad I shared my story with you. For a moment, they just stared into each other's eyes, feeling an unspoken bond growing stronger between them. It was a connection built on mutual understanding and care, a rare and precious thing. Cameron then signed, breaking the intimate silence. Are you ready to go back to class? Millie nodded affirmatively, feeling fortified by his support. They held hands, a simple act that spoke volumes about their growing connection, and made their way back to the classroom together. As they entered, Olivia's eyes immediately found Millie. Her gaze was perceptive, knowing. Something major happened, Olivia thought. She's different, but now's not the time to pry. She'll tell me when she's ready. As the class droned on, Morgana leaned over to Olivia, a mischievous glint in her eye. I'm seriously over this. How much longer are we supposed to sit here pretending to be interested in this mundane American school system? Olivia, who'd been discreetly glancing at her watch, smirked in agreement. I know, right? I mean, there's so many more interesting things we could be doing. Running a company, for instance? Morgana chuckled. I didn't come all this way back to be stuck in a classroom. I was expecting a bit more excitement, a bit more spice. Olivia nodded. Well, why don't we just leave? Who's stopping us? Morgana's eyes lit up. You're a genius. Let's get out of here. I swear American school is about as exciting as watching paint dry. I'd rather be literally anywhere else. With a shared look of understanding, the two stood up, gathered their things nonchalantly. They slipped out of the classroom, blending effortlessly into the school corridors, and then disappearing out of the school building. As they made their way to the park company offices, Jeff approached Olivia with a sense of urgency. Olivia, the Rose family has officially started doing business in New York. Olivia looked at him, her expression a mix of surprise and disbelief. That can't be, she said. Jeff pulled out his phone, showing her a press conference from earlier in the day, where Mark DeLillo confirmed the news. Olivia watched the press conference closely, her annoyance growing with each passing second, especially at the sight of Mark. A reporter at the press conference asked Mark if he would be in direct competition with the new park company. Mark didn't directly say yes, but this roundabout answer left little doubt about his intentions. Olivia's face hardened as she turned to Jeff. If Mark wants to go to war, we'll go to war. Mark has no idea who he's dealing with this time, Olivia thought with pleasure. Olivia relished Mark's public declaration of war. It was perfect, and she accepted it happily. This is my chance, my perfect opportunity to get closer to him. Then I can finally get my revenge. The next day, Mark's statements made headlines all over the major news outlets. It was a media frenzy. The positioning of the Rose family in opposition to the Park family was all anyone was talking about. Insiders of the situation were buzzing with the possibilities and started to make bets and plans. This was a new era in the New York City big business scene. The four famous families of New York City had replaced and eliminated the old four families, with the Park and Rose families emerging as the dominant top two. These were two giants of the past that had made dark horse comebacks to go head-to-head once again. There were some who hoped and speculated that the Rose and Park families might destroy each other, and leave others to reap the benefits from their losses, like scavengers feeding off of bigger, powerful carrion. I can't believe the Parks and the Roses are back in business, one socialite gossiped to her friend over brunch. This is going to get messy. The friend nodded. I hope the Parks go down in flames once and for all. I can't stand anyone who bears the last name of Johnson. The original Johnson family, once one of the old four powerhouses in the city, had already left New York, and Olivia Johnson had taken over Johnson Inc. and changed the name to Park Inc. In an instant, she had power over the names of two of the most powerful families, the Parks and the Johnsons. The Park family had been driven out of New York for so long that no one had worried about them for some time. Olivia's ascension to power changed all of that. New York City's top financial families had been reshuffled, and the old four families were essentially obsolete. This is a dangerous turning point, one powerful businesswoman declared to her top advisors. Olivia has consolidated the power of both the Johnson and the Park families. If she's not stopped, she could become the most powerful individual in the country, maybe the world. The other families will be at her mercy. One advisor nodded his head. But who can challenge her? It's too soon to do it so openly. I advise that we all sit back and wait. Olivia has the support of Chris Jones and the entire Jones family. Don't let her age fool you. She is every bit as formidable as old Jack Johnson. Maybe even more so. Last I heard, Jack and Bruno are trying to rebuild in Europe, the businesswoman said. If they're smart, they'll stay small and out of the limelight as long as possible. We do have one hope, the advisor said carefully. Mark DeLillo of the Rose family looks to be a promising power player. Until now, he's stuck to the shadows and hidden his identity well. Of course, there's no way he did all this on his own, but he might just be the one to take down Olivia Johnson once and for all. The businesswoman nodded her head. The fallout of this war will determine the future of New York for decades. We just have to make sure we back the right horse. While these scheming conversations were happening in conference rooms and dinner clubs all over the city, no one knew what was at stake better than the Nevin family. At the house of the Nevin family, a white-haired man sat in a brightly lit hall and sipped his tea before he set it down hard on the table. "What do you mean?" the white-haired man asked impatiently. He was the patriarch of the Nevin family. "Grandpa, I don't understand it. The current situation in New York is upside down," Jake Nevin complained from the other side of the table. "Olivia is my classmate at Marshall School, and somehow everyone thinks she has more power than God. She keeps interfering with my plans, and I don't understand how she manages it, but she does. She's very clever, I guess." He carefully watched his grandfather's expression. "Of course she's clever." Grandpa Nevin smiled knowingly. "She's got the best of old Jack Johnson, one of the most cutthroat businessmen in the last 40 years. He underestimated her, and she clearly outsmarted him. She's very good. I told you to be careful. She is your opponent, and you have underestimated her too. She didn't cheat you out of anything, she just played better than you." "I know, grandfather, I get it, I should have listened," Jake answered, annoyed. "That's why I said we should take sides and team up with the Roses." Grandfather Nevin frowned and looked at Jake without saying a word. Jake swallowed, trying to hide his nervousness, and continued explaining his plan. "Grandfather, if we cooperate with the Roses now, we will have a chance to defeat Olivia. She is a wildly ambitious person. If we let her continue on the trajectory she's on, all of New York will fall into her hands and it will be too late for us to do anything. Park Inc. has its own markets and the Nevin business is in the building sector. We operate in two completely different industries," his grandfather replied. "That may be the case usually, but the Park family happens to be a very big customer of ours right now," said a young man as he made his way down the stairs. "The Parks are renovating a new building. The renovation of their two old buildings added another $5 million contract. We don't need to ruin our current business deal with Park Inc. just because a new supposed member of the Rose family just appeared out of nowhere." The young man reached the bottom of the stairs and joined Jake and his grandfather. He looked a few years younger than Jake. This was Jake Nevin's younger brother, Jared Nevin. "You don't even know what you're talking about, do you, Jared?" Jake responded irritably. His voice was full of disdain for his younger brother. He rolled his eyes impatiently and added, "You only know how to have a short-term view. You need to look at it with a long view. If Olivia were to eventually take over New York City, we'd be priced out and pushed out. The shakeup of the four families could leave the Nevin family out in the cold." Jake furrowed his brow. "If we kill Olivia like you're suggesting, how can we guarantee that the Roses won't just become a bigger threat than the Park family? The Rose family has always wanted to be a part of the 7 great families, not just the big 4 in New York, and they will take anyone down to get there. They could be just as much, if not a bigger problem, if they want it bad enough. Olivia, on the other hand, has a lot going on for her. You can't beat her connections and alliances. As a Johnson, she's already connected to the 7 great families as well as the 4 big families of New York. She's also very close with Frances Handler. If we align ourselves with the Rose family, it would mean that we've completely broken off ties with the Johnson family and the Handler family. I think this path of making enemies is very foolish. What do you know? Jake barely held back his anger. He hated when his younger brother spoke to him so condescendingly. The Handler family business is not nearly as strong as it was in the past. The Cooper family should have been eliminated a long time ago. If we make an alliance with the Rose family and get in early, we won't have a problem overcoming the Handler family's ties to Park Inc. Then the 4 big families of New York will be down to only 2 families, the Roses and the Nevins. That's the best outcome we can hope for, and we should position ourselves for it while we still can. Big brother, you sound like you're trusting the Rose family way too much, Jared said and frowned at Jake. Abandoning a stable partner and betting everything instead on a business partner that has a ton of question marks for us is not a wise business tactic. This would mean... Shut up, okay? Just shut up! Jake shouted at Jared. You're being so stupid. I'm just stating the facts. Jared shrugged nonchalantly. He liked getting a rise out of his older brother. You don't know what you're talking about. You repeat things from business school books, but do you think you can strategize the real-world Nevin family business just from taking a special business program in school and a few extra online classes? Jake snarled. He really hated his brother. All he's done is read. He has no real experience, but he thinks he's so smart. Jake thought angrily. What do you know about the real-world business landscape in New York City? You have no idea what's actually best for the Nevin business. Well, I don't think what you're suggesting is the best idea, Jared said more quietly. Oh, you don't think it's the best idea, do you? Jake sneered sarcastically. Jake wanted nothing more than to scold Jared and put him in his place, but he saw his grandfather eyeing him disapprovingly. Jake immediately took a deep breath and spoke more calmly. What you think you've learned at school might not really apply to this real-world situation is what I'm trying to say. Jared made no response. He knew his older brother had a point. He was fresh off of learning a lot about business, and he had studied very hard on the workings of their own family business. But Jake was the oldest heir and the oldest grandson. Jared wasn't in the best position to argue with Jake. He held his tongue. All right, their grandfather finally said. I'm glad to see that you both are thinking so much about the future of the Nevin business. Both boys looked to their grandfather, waiting to see what his ruling would be on the matter. Unfortunately, you both have not accounted for one big thing in each of your arguments. Their grandfather paused for a moment, then finally declared, I believe, Jake, you are weaker than your brother Jared. Jake clenched his fist, furious. How could my grandfather side with Jared? Jake reeled from his grandfather's stinging insult. How could he side with my idiot younger brother? But, Grandfather Nevin added suspensefully, and the boy's ears perked up. Jake is, after all, your older brother. You have to listen to him, Jared. Jake smirked, satisfied. He unclenched his fist and relaxed a bit. Yes, Jared nodded. He knew how things were supposed to work in the family. As long as my older brother Jake is still alive, I always come in second, even if I am more capable, even if I'm right. Jake? Grandfather Nevin raised his head and looked at his oldest grandson. What Jared said reflects my own concerns right now. The Roses, we remember, or this new Rose family member, Mark DeLillo, none of them are worthy of my trust as far as I can tell. If you want to ally with the Roses, at least prove to me that the Rose business is as strong as Park Inc. I need to be confident that Mark DeLillo isn't overhyped. He has to be better than Olivia. Only then will I consider taking this risk to align our family with the Roses. Grandfather, the Roses... Jake started to say, but he stopped speaking as soon as his grandfather raised a hand. "I've heard enough. I don't want to hear any more." Grandfather Nevin looked at Jake seriously. "I will only go ahead with your plan if you prove its merit. Show me the proof." "But grandfather, the Roses also signed a $3 million contract with us last month, a few days ago." Jake tried to continue. "Jake, you're not listening to me." Grandfather Nevin interrupted and sighed deeply. "Go back to your room and think about it. I don't know what it will take for you to get it, but get back to me when you are ready to deliver what I've asked." Jake clenched his fists again, angry to be sent away to his room, but he could not argue. "Fine," Jake said through his teeth. He glared coldly at Jared as he walked past him to head upstairs. Grandfather Nevin watched Jake stomp up the stairs and shook his head. He took a breath and turned to his younger grandson. "Jared," he said, "come join me in my study." "Yes, grandfather." Jared answered and held out his arm to his grandfather. "Here, I'll help you up." Grandfather Nevin nodded and held onto Jared's arm for support as they walked. After they walked up the stairs, Grandfather Nevin looked around the corner and saw a sliver of Jake's sleeve sticking out from behind the curtains, as if he had not hidden well enough. Grandfather Nevin rolled his eyes hopelessly at his grandson. "He is very stupid, but he's the oldest. What can I do?" he thought. He said nothing and allowed Jake to think he had not been seen. He continued walking with Jared toward the study. The moment the door of the study closed, Jake emerged from behind the curtain with a flustered and exasperated expression on his face. Apparently, grandfather does favor Jared. He wouldn't have invited him to go talk in the study if he didn't. Why couldn't he say whatever he was going to say in front of me when we were downstairs? What if he's going to say something critical about me? Jake gritted his teeth. He originally wanted to know what they were going to talk about without him, but now he didn't want to think about it at all. This is too much. Jake reflected on what his grandfather had already said to him, and it only made his rage build. What is he going to say that he can't say in front of me? He's going to make me guess and stew about it? That's really twisted. Damn them both. Just then, Jake's phone vibrated in his pocket. Jake lifted his phone to his ear and answered. "Hello? What's going on?" "Oh no, is Jake Nevin not in a good mood?" The voice on the other end asked sarcastically. "Mark DeLillo, what do you want?" Jake asked, frowning. "I want to talk business, of course," Mark answered, smirking. "I'm staying at the Sovereign in room S567. If you want, you should come meet me here." "The Sovereign?" Jake furrowed his brow. "Isn't that—" "I'll be here waiting for you, Jake," Mark said and hung up the phone. Jake heard the dial tone on the phone and cursed in a low voice. What is he talking about? He mused, frustrated. He glared fiercely in the direction of the study where his grandfather had gone with Jared and felt a new swell of jealousy and resentment. Jake made up his mind. He went back to his room, grabbed what he needed to go out, and went downstairs. He summoned a car and climbed in. "The Sovereign," he instructed the driver. Meanwhile, in the study, Grandfather Nevin sat behind his great mahogany desk. He lit a cigar and took a puff. Smoke billowed around him. His face had a touch of sadness. "Grandfather, what can I do for you?" Jared asked. He waited for his grandfather's silence. Grandfather Nevin continued puffing on his cigar and staring ahead, deep in thought. At last, Grandfather Nevin spoke. "Jake," he said and narrowed his eyes, "I'm afraid that Mark DeLillo has something on him." Jared paused for a moment and reflected on what had happened earlier. "Grandfather, maybe it's not like that. Jake just desperately wants to do well and impress you. I think he's really trying to do what he thinks is best for the family and the future of the business." "No." Grandfather Nevin shook his head. "Jake really overstepped today. His lack of respect is completely embarrassing in light of his poor performance. Jared lowered his head. It was true. Jake seemed to lose his temper much more than usual during their conversation. He didn't think his brother's ideas had any merit, though. Everything has to be considered from two perspectives, Jared thought. You want risk-takers and more conservative points of view on your team. Jared kept thinking it through logically. If we do align with the Roses and they come out on top, our fortunes won't necessarily improve dramatically. But if the Roses lose, that would be disastrous for us. It doesn't make sense to take such a big swing for such small gains when the stakes are so high if it goes badly. Grandfather Nevin shook his head. He wouldn't be pushing for this idea if he didn't have some weakness driving him. Jake is too easily motivated by a thirst for revenge. It's a slippery slope. Did you understand what I asked him today? Yes, Jared nodded. He understood that even though it was a risky move to align with the Roses, Grandfather Nevin was still giving Jake a chance. If he could get proof that the Roses were the right team to align with, he would go for it. Grandfather Nevin wanted to meet Mark DeLillo for himself to assess his character. If they were going to work together, the Nevins needed to know that they were joining forces with exceptional people. They needed to be fighters, winners, up to the task of besting Olivia Johnson. The economy of the entire country was up in the air, especially in New York City. If the Nevins wanted to weather this storm and come out on the other side, they needed to be even more cautious when making their moves. Grandfather Nevin looked at Jared's face and knew that he was telling the truth. Jared has the maturity to understand. Meanwhile, Jake wants to eavesdrop like a child. Grandfather Nevin thought regretfully. He was so disappointed in his oldest grandson. He looked away from Jared and sighed heavily. They say that heroes appear in troubled times. Why is Olivia, the granddaughter of that terrible man Jack Johnson, thriving now? But my own grandson is a fool who is blinded by petty emotions. How can this be my family's fate? He sighed deeply. Grandfather, you don't have to worry too much. If you really feel that you shouldn't take this risk for Jake, then don't make a deal with the Roses, Jared said. But if Park Inc. wins in the end, Grandfather Nevin mused as a conflicted look flashed in his eyes and tried to explain another way. Right now, New York City is the only place where Olivia Johnson is the most dominant. I think I see where you're going with this, Jared said. Even if the Roses weren't a factor, Olivia's meteoric rise— He paused for a moment and watched for his grandfather's reaction before continuing. It will just be a matter of time before Olivia has more power than anyone, even beyond New York. Precisely, Grandfather Nevin agreed. But the Roses just happened to appear out of nowhere. So you want to stop Olivia from being the most powerful, Jared said, finally understanding. It's not just me who wants to stop her. Everyone wants to stop her. That scenario is good for no one. Grandfather Nevin said and looked into Jared's eyes. If Olivia becomes the most powerful, then the Park family is sure to return. And that will be a disaster for all of us. Grandfather, I don't understand. What is so horrible about the Park family returning to New York City? Jared Nevin shook his head, confused. It's a complicated matter. Grandfather Nevin narrowed his eyes and seemed to not want to elaborate too much. But I am definitely one among many in this town who do not wish for the Park family to return. The business world is like a battlefield, and we all do whatever it takes to fight for our family's interests. The return of the Park family would incite a war. Grandfather Nevin's thoughts turned dark as he reflected on the past. If the Park family really returned, were the same terrible things from the past doomed to repeat? He wondered. Grandfather, Jared started to ask another question, but his grandfather waved his hand dismissively to stop him. Jared, there are some things you do not need to know, Grandfather Nevin said. If this Mark DeLillo turns out to be worth joining forces with, then the Nevin family will have no choice but to do so. However, if Mark DeLillo turns out to be a bad fellow, then I do not want to get involved with another enemy." "I know." Jared nodded his head. Grandfather Nevin sighed. "Even though Jake is foolish sometimes and has his own other issues that I won't go into right now, he is still the oldest Nevin heir. As his younger brother, you just have to do your best to assist him," he reminded. "Yes," Jared agreed. He had known this fact since he was young. Even though he was more capable than Jake, as long as Jake was still alive, Jared would have to defer to him. "Oh, it's getting late. You should go and get some rest." Grandfather Nevin nodded. "All right," Jared answered and turned to leave. Jared returned to his room and closed the door. He sighed heavily and fell back onto his large bed. He felt tired, as if all of the energy in his body had been completely drained by the conversation he just had. Jared reflected on how he had learned to conduct himself so carefully, always so over-the-top polite, to win any respect in the family. He worked hard to be an extreme contrast to his whiny, petulant, demanding older brother. But at the end of the day, it never seemed to be enough to make a difference. Am I really going to just make polite suggestions to my brother forever? Jake is such an idiot. I have no idea what's going to happen to the Nevin family if Jake becomes the one in charge. And the new Rose family member. Was Mark DeLillo really the right side to take in all of this conflict? Jake's thoughts churned in his mind. He reached up and gently rubbed his temples to help him think. Everyone praises me and thinks I'm brilliant and suited for this. But what's that any good for? I'm not the oldest Nevin heir, and I can't make any real decisions. But I will not follow the Nevin family name to slowly decline until Jake allows it to be destroyed. The more Jared thought about how powerless he was compared to his brother, the more irritated he became. Jared raised his fists and pounded it against a pillow in frustration. Suddenly, Jared's phone rang. He sat up and took his phone out of his pocket. He looked down at the completely unfamiliar phone number displayed on the screen and felt puzzled. Who is calling me right now? I just got a new phone number, so there aren't very many people who have it. How did an unknown person get my number? Jared hesitated for a few more rings, then he finally answered the phone. Hello, may I ask who is calling? Jared asked politely. Guess. A male voice came through the other end of the call. The voice laughed heartily. Mr. Jeff Dreyer, Jared exclaimed as he immediately recognized the voice and the laugh. His eyes lit up. It's been a long time since I've heard from you. How did you get my phone number? I just had to do a little asking around. Okay, maybe a lot of asking around, Jeff said with a smile. I just found out you were back in town today when I was talking to some of my colleagues. Why didn't you contact me when you got back? Is Jake still a huge pain in the ass? Jeff asked playfully. What do you think? Jared laughed. I haven't been back very long. I lost my phone and I don't have anyone's number. Where are you now? I'm just finishing up with the client. Do you have some time? If I finish around when I think, I'm going to pretty soon. How about meeting for tea? My treat. Late tea time, huh? Jared joked. You're too young to drink anything else, so it's my next best option. Jeff teased. I'm not in the habit of corrupting kids under 21 and inviting them out to a wine bar. If tea isn't too boring for you, I can head over to pick you up soon. How about it? You'll be on my way anyway. Well, Jared hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, I'll get ready. Wow, dressing up for me, it's a date, Jeff joked. It's been so many years and you still mess with me exactly like no time has gone by at all. Jared laughed. You haven't changed a bit, Jeff. Okay, I'll try to lay off the teasing. Jeff smiled. I have 2 other friends joining us for tea and I'll be picking them up too. I should be able to get to you in about 20 minutes. Is that enough to pull your whole look together? You lasted about 5 seconds with the note teasing thing. Jared laughed, but he felt a bit hesitant as he thought about Jeff bringing 2 friends. It was already too late for him to back out of the plans. It would be too awkward to change his mind at that point. Okay, I'll be ready. he agreed. Great, I'll see you soon, Jeff said before he hung up the phone with a smile. After he ended the call, Jeff looked up at the person drinking fruit tea in front of him and nodded. Looks like I've got a meeting. Thanks, Jeff. Very well done. Olivia smiled sweetly. Don't thank me just yet. I got him to agree to meet with me. But the situation in the Nevin family is tricky. Jared is the younger brother, and he really doesn't have much clout. I don't even know how much he can say. Jeff sighed, pitying his old friend. It's all right. Olivia smiled. You're Jeff Dreyer. You're clever, and you'll figure it out. Jeff smiled and nodded at Olivia. Meanwhile, at the Sovereign Hotel, Jake had his own meeting with Mark DeLillo in his suite. Jake Nevin, let's have another drink. A beautiful young woman leaned on Jake flirtatiously on the couch and stroked his shoulder. You're young, but I can already tell you're so amazing. You're someone special. I agree. Another pretty young woman on Jake's other side chimed in as she refilled Jake's glass with wine. They were both the prettiest ladies Jake had ever spent time with. Mark has told us so much about you. You're so impressive. Yeah. The first woman nodded and playfully ran her fingers through Jake's hair above his ear. Jake laughed somewhat nervously, unsure if this was really happening to him. He looked up at Mark, who was sitting on the other couch opposite them. I'll have to thank Mark for talking me up so much. Mark laughed. Jake is an up-and-coming titan. That's really all I had to say. He joked. I appreciate you throwing this party, Jake said carefully. What is it you want, Mark? What do I want? I just want to show you a good time, Jake. You'd never been to the Sovereign. I thought I'd change that. Mark held up his wine glass and smiled before taking another sip. Jake looked at Mark skeptically. He knew it couldn't be that simple. Jake, relax, Mark said. The owner of the Sovereign is very powerful. Even if I was up to something, I would never start any trouble here. How about this? As a gesture of good faith, I'm going to leave you to have some time to yourself here in this room to talk to my friends. Mark stood up, winked at Jake, and walked out of the door. Jake raised his eyebrows as he watched Mark go. It was true. The Sovereign was not the place to play tricks. Mark appeared to be sincere in his offer. The woman leaning against Jake turned to face him. Jake, why don't you relax and tell us more about yourself? She asked playfully as she reached for Jake's belt. Jake's mind went crazy with excitement. Is this really my life? We came here to have some fun. You look like you want to have fun too. One of the young women stroked Jake's chest while the other worked on undoing his pants. Jake took a moment to think through what was happening. Right now, I'm sitting at the most expensive hotel in New York City, in the most high-end suite, with two girls that are way hotter than anyone at school. He had never been to that hotel before, but not because he could not afford it. He just never had a reason to go, and he had thought it seemed overrated. Why pay that much? He felt a bit differently under the current circumstances. Besides, I don't even have to pay for this room, Jake thought. Is it weird to hook up in someone else's room? I'm pretty sure that's what Mark meant when he said he was leaving us alone and winked. I guess I should relax and have some fun. Jake smiled as one of the women pulled down his zipper. I do want to have some fun, he answered. The two women giggled and smiled mischievously. Between 18 and rich rocks, Jake thought to himself. It's been such a long time since we last caught up. Jeff smiled as he drove through the city. What brought you back to New York? I finished my program and my family wants me to come back and help out, Jared replied. I just got back pretty recently. Right, I see. Well, it's good timing. There are a lot of opportunities in New York right now. Jeff nodded. Did you end up going back to work at your family's company? Jared asked as he looked out the window at the city lights. No, Jeff said vaguely. I'm getting some more experience first. Oh, that's a good idea too. Jared nodded. Then he sighed. New York has changed a lot since I went away. It's true, a lot has happened in that time. Jeff smiled. I assume you heard all about it when you returned. Yeah, Jared nodded. I got the highlights. Jared thought gloomily about his conversation with his grandfather and Jake. Grandfather knows I'm right about this whole situation. He said so himself. But just because I was unlucky enough to be born second, none of that matters. Jared's jaw tightened in frustration just thinking about it. Jeff noticed that Jared seemed tense. You all right, man? I promise it's not too far. Jeff joked pleasantly. Jared immediately relaxed, embarrassed that he had given away some of his angst. Oh, I'm fine, just annoying brother stuff. He laughed it off. Jared knew he couldn't share the private details of that argument with anyone, even with his old friend Jeff. I see. Jake is going to get in trouble sooner or later if he's not careful. He's a loose cannon, Jeff said as he turned down another street. He frowned at the road in front of him. This place doesn't have its parking, so we'll have to park in that lot over there and we'll walk over. I didn't realize this late-night tea place was so popular. How have I not heard of this? Jared smiled. I've been away so long, I feel like I'm not even from New York City anymore. I have no idea what's cool here. Don't feel too bad, this place actually just opened. The owner is an interesting character. Jeff had a glint in his eye and smiled. I'll introduce you. Sure. Jared nodded politely. Since you just got back into town and you're ready to settle in here, it will be good for you to start meeting more people, Jeff said. What's the point? Jared smiled, but there was a hint of bitterness in his voice. My brother's the big shot and I'm just his sidekick. Jeff waved his hand dismissively at Jared's comment and parked the car in a lot around the corner. Let's go. Tea time, Jared smiled. The two got out of the car and Jeff locked it before they walked down the street to the tea house. It was a pleasant night out, and the weather had cooled after being much hotter in the day. Jared watched people enjoy themselves as they walked up and down the streets. He felt the cool night breeze blow through his hair. He felt very comfortable and at ease. His frustration from his conversation with his grandfather dissipated as they walked. For a moment, Jared even felt good, and he was glad that he accepted Jeff's invitation. He was curious to experience the tea place. Maybe I'll have a good time after all, he thought hopefully. After passing another street, Jeff led him down an alley that made several twists and turns. Jared felt a little uneasy as they moved away from the main street and deeper down the darkened alley. Jeff, where are we going? Jared finally asked. To drink some good tea. Jeff smiled and stopped walking. We're here. Huh? Jared was stunned for a moment and looked at the building where Jeff stopped. It was a very small place. At first glance, it looked somewhat run down, possibly even empty. There was no sign of activity from the outside. Jared struggled to imagine that any kind of business operated out of this place, much less a tea house with particularly good tea. Come on! Jeff smiled and opened the door. It looked dark inside. Jeff! Jared looked at the dilapidated door and was surprised Jeff hadn't pulled it off of its hinges. It kind of gave him the creeps. Jared wanted to turn around and go home, but Jeff walked in and disappeared into the dark interior. Jared hesitated a moment and followed Jeff. Let's see, it's somewhere right here, Jeff mumbled as he fell around in the dark. Finally, he found the handle he was looking for and turned it. Soft, warm light flooded in from beyond the door, and Jared suddenly smelled the fragrant aroma of a variety of teas. Floral, spicy, fruity, herbal, sweet. All the different flavored brews wafted toward them in a pleasant way. Jared blinked, getting his bearings, and saw that while the outside looked like an abandoned building, the inside was rather glamorous while still maintaining a comforting ambiance. The interior featured beautifully finished wood that mingled with the tea fragrances to create the feeling of entering a lush garden. Charming paintings hung on the walls and cozy candles provided the pleasant lighting over the ornate tables and plush, inviting chairs. Go ahead and take a seat here. Jeff smiled and sat down at a table by the wall. Jared looked down at the table and his eyes widened. The carving in this table is incredible. Oh yeah? Jeff asked playfully, pretending not to have noticed. Look at the detail in this. Jared breathed as he gently ran his finger along the table's ornate design. This is a handmade antique. This table alone is priceless, and there's so many in here. Jared was from a well-off family, and he had seen items of this quality a few times. But the last place he had expected to see them was in a tea house hidden in a dark, run-down alleyway. What kind of place is this? Jared wondered. Glad you like it. Jeff smiled. What tea are you thinking? Anything. Anything is fine. Jared answered. He peered around at the other tables and chairs and found that they all indeed were priceless pieces of art. Jared was extremely impressed. He had never been to a place like this before, and he was delighted. Whoever runs this place must be a pretty big deal. They have amazing taste, he thought. I'm so glad I came here instead of staying at home. Jeff, how did you find this place? Jared asked, full of wonder. The owner is a friend of mine, Jeff answered. He thought for a minute, then asked, How well do you sleep at night, on average? Huh? Jared was confused by Jeff's question. It was so unrelated to what they were talking about. He answered anyway, I sleep not very well at all, actually. Then let's not order green tea. You don't want to be up all night, Jeff said. The herbal menu has a lot of fun stuff. We can try whatever you want. You really can't go wrong with any of them. Jared understood Jeff's question then and looked over the menu. He had a difficult time choosing, but settled on an herbal tea that was supposed to taste like chocolate cake. One of these days, when you have a morning or afternoon free, we can come back here and try the green and black teas. Jeff nodded. I'd love that, Jared said enthusiastically. He couldn't wait to come back and try every single tea and spend more time in that delightful secret place. Once they placed their order, Jared looked back at Jeff. You have to tell me. I must know who the owner of the shop is. Jeff smirked mischievously. Jared was on the edge of his seat.